Hello. Before I get on with the presentation, I want to say that if I do look up, it's to stay on track with the presentation. It's not me just regurgitating what it says. I promise that. But, anyways, my future career or my goal for the future is to go into something involving journalism. I'm already majoring in it, and I'm not too picky about what kind of journalist I want to be, or even if I want to be a journalist. But for the sake of this uh, presentation, I'm just going to go with journalist. It can be any kind, broad, but there's tons of different units in that we've covered this semester that can totally be applied to journalism. I mean, problem solving and critical thinking. I may have to assess the credibility of a source, and I might have to think about why a source is telling me something and what that source's motives are, if it has any, if it's a person or a document of some kind. Tons of different, whether it's political, environmental journalists, basically every journalist will run into this at some point where they have to evaluate a source. It's one of the most important parts about the job. But it's far from the only unit that can be applied to it. For example, measurement and conversion as a bit, it might not be broadly applicable as, like, say, problem solving and critical thinking, but like if I were a environmental journalist writing about increasing water levels worldwide, I'd have to include multiple measurement systems that measure the water level, because readers are from all different places. People reading articles, if I was writing an article about that, readers are from all over the world, and not all of them know the imperial system, and not all know the metric system. So I'd have to include both and also include the conversions. Now, geometry, that's also a bit tricky because geometry is a very visual thing, and journalism is often like either spoken or it's written. Journalism is more often verbal, or it's literature. It's not really, that's the right word. It's not really visual, but there are points where journalists will have to create like graphs, like if I was, or translate data, like, and use geometry doing that. Like if I was a political journalist and I had to create a graph that measured the population of a specific city and who that population voted for in a mayoral election, I'd use geometry to make sure that the graph that I'm creating is proportionate to the data collected from that election. And now onto the more, like, again, the more common stuff that's used in journalism that we covered in this unit, like data analysis and statistics. Like if I was a journalist analyzing a decade of a city's housing data, I could use my ability to analyze data to notice that while the amount of housing is increasing, the affordability of each house is actually decreasing. Without the ability to analyze that data, I wouldn't have noticed that trend at all, and I wouldn't have been able to report on it. And missing something like that is not good if you're a certain kind of journalist. And the last unit, or the last unit that I chose that can be applied to journalism pretty frequently, it's actually the most broadly applicable one, I think, is logic. If I were a journalist writing an editorial, for example, I was writing an editorial about, say, a political figure's debate. I could point out and explain the logical fallacies used within that debate. I would be at the same time both exposing flaws within their argument and supporting my own if I was, say, writing an opinion piece against what their messaging was in a debate. If I didn't understand how logic or these logical fallacies worked, I might, and my readers might, miss out on some key points of information. Anyways, thank you for listening to me ramble on about how journalism connects to the different units we've covered. Wasn't the prettiest speech, but I wanted to give something that was, off the dome and not clearly just purely written down. because I thought it'd be more interesting. Anyways, I'm gonna end it before it runs a bit long. It runs too long. See ya.